So today we're looking at a hip mobility routine. It's actually from my online course, Mobility Reset, preview of that. Hope you enjoy it. If you want to find out a little bit more about the course, there's a link in the description box below. It's actually half price at the moment as well, if you want to check it out. Hope you enjoy, hope it benefits you in some shape or form. Catch you soon. So as always, we'll start with a little check-in. I get my ribs out so it's easier to see. We're just checking the pelvis. So finding your pelvic bones and just seeing if one is maybe higher than the other, maybe a little further forward than the other. We can also then look at the tilt of our pelvis. So here we've got the anterior pelvic tilt, where if it was a bowl, the water would be spilling out. And then opposite, we have that posterior tilt. So if the pelvis was a bowl, the water would be spilling back. So just checking where our default position is. Ideally, we're kind of getting the hips sort of level, facing forward. But yeah, just checking it to see where our starting point is. You can also have a play around with flexion. So how well can we bend our knees up towards our chest? Also do extension against the wall. So just raising the leg up behind you. Noticing if there's any different from side to side. So you can see my left side is usually a bit stronger, a bit more mobile. We can also do a few squats, maybe shifting our weight side to side to see how easy that feels. And we can play with a hip hinge. So can we move freely through that position and squeeze our glutes effectively at the top? So we're going to kick things off with a lower back release. So you're going to grab a ball, a tennis ball or something firmer when you get down on the ground. So we're tracing from kind of the junction between the pelvis and the spine, the lower back, across the top of the pelvis, and then moving slightly upwards and tracing back along the base of the rib. So staying on soft tissue, we're not going on the spine or on any bones, we're just applying a bit of pressure. So to get down, you can have your legs against the wall. So you can see me in super slow-mo here, rolling backwards and then shifting my hips. So my hips are against the wall. This allows us to put a little bit more pressure down through the ball. But it can be done just lying on your back, normally on the floor as well. So we start on the right side. You're just going to slide the ball into that junction between kind of your lower back and the pelvis where they meet. And we're just applying this kind of gentle scrubbing technique side to side. You can also play around with hand and arm and foot positions on the wall too. So you're just shifting your pelvis from side to side. If you find anything that's particularly tight and nasty, just hang out there. Just apply that pressure. Take a big deep breath into your belly. And then as you exhale, see if you can sink a little bit further, sort of molding your tissues around the ball. So you can shift that along a little bit now towards kind of the outside of your body. So we're hitting kind of the QL region. We're maybe touching on some of the obliques and maybe even the lats as well when we start to sneak back round. So you can see I'm shifting my hips a little bit more as I move the ball towards the outside of my body. So you can get a little bit more leverage and apply a bit more pressure that way. So we're not searching for pain. And if we find it's too intense, we might need to back off a little bit. If we find we're having to hold our breath, then yeah, maybe we need to just back off or go for a slightly less firm ball. So we're going to shift the ball up a little bit now, and you can see I'm kind of more on the side of my body. So we're coming in from that sideways angle on those lower back tissues. It's really scrubbing away, getting that leverage, and working our way along the base of the ribs back towards the spine. So feel free to spend a little bit longer if you want to on this side, but if not, we're gonna go ahead and switch sides now. So again, starting in that base position where the lower back and the pelvis meet in that kind of junction. We're just scrubbing from side to side. So if you're someone who sits a lot, you work at a desk maybe, or you have to commute to work, then this is a great exercise for you. It's a great one to relieve tension through the lower back. Even just putting the legs up the wall and not having the ball, that's a technique that's been used in yoga for a very, very long time because it releases that tension, allows the lower back to kind of decompress. So by applying this pressure, we're kind of releasing some of the tension in the lower back, telling our nervous system that we're okay, that it's a safe position. So this not only means we can potentially have less pain in that area, but also means we have more control over our pelvis. So we're doing things like handstands or deadlifting, we have a lot more control, we can be in more safe, stable positions. So I'm kind of on the outside now, just above the hip bone, and starting to work my way back in towards the spine. Just being mindful of our breathing all throughout. Just kind of enjoy taking a little bit of time for yourself. So you can spend a bit longer here, but we're going to dismount now. Try and be mindful through the transition. So you can see in super slow-mo, I'm tensing my core and rolling everything together as one unit. I'm not letting the hips come down first or the hands. I'm trying to stay tight through the core, so we're not putting any extra pressure on the low back. So next up we have a hip flexor release, a great one for releasing any tension around the front of the pelvis and freeing up that low back. So again, grabbing a ball, your choice. I'm going for a big one just because it's easier for you to see. So we're going to start by scrubbing from side to side below the pelvis, across the hip flexors onto the outside of the hip a little bit. Then we'll take things north, go above the pelvis into kind of the psoas and those tissues around there in the obliques. So you're going to get down onto the floor, grab your ball, wedge it underneath your pelvis and start to apply a little bit of pressure there. It's maybe not the most gym-friendly exercise to do, but it's a good one to do from the comfort of your own home. So you can see I'm turning my pelvis a little bit and sort of rotating my upper body away to kind of get a bit more leverage and apply some more pressure there. So we're just scrubbing from side to side, maybe up and down a little bit, little circular motions as well, whatever feels right for you. And again, if you find any tight spots, just hang out there. You can always pause the video, take a few deep breaths, and kind of acclimatize your body to being in that position. So I'm on the outside of the hip here, a little bit of TFL region, the tissues around there. And we're just scrubbing from side to side. Now we're just moving above the pelvis. This is where the deeper ball can sometimes come in handy, or a foam roller. We're always trying to stay mindful of our breathing and of our core positioning, so trying not to dump through the core or let things switch off. So always holding that little awareness throughout everything that we're doing, and everything's going to be a lot more beneficial for us then. We're going to get the results that we're looking to get. So we're not just going through the motions. So I'm switching things up a little bit more to the outside, so just underneath the rib cage where that psoas kind of starts to attach. So we're quite deep here, and it can be quite intense, so just take it slow, take it at your own pace. We're just scrubbing from side to side. Again, if anything's particularly tight, feel free to spend a bit more time there, otherwise we're going to switch sides, going on to your left. Again, we're starting just below the pelvis on the kind of top of the thigh, those hip flexors there, and just gently scrubbing from side to side. So being mindful of our core, just having it slightly engaged, and also being mindful of our breathing as well. If you find any tight spots now as we roll to the outside, then just hang out there for as long as you need, just scrubbing from side to side. You might find some tight bits on the outside of the glute there. I know I tend to get quite tight there. It's quite a common area. You slide above the pelvis now. As we start to release through here, not only do we improve our ability to flex and to extend at the hip, we just get more control over our pelvis full stop. So even things like internal and external rotation, which we'll cover in phase 2 of the course, they become easier as well. So we're noticing, as always, any differences from side to side. You see I'm moving to the outside of the body now a little bit more. I'm rotating my upper body away from the floor. It can be quite a nasty position for some people, particularly if you sit a lot. You tend to get quite tight through here. So just take your time with that one. Breathe. Feel free to pause and go back to it if you want to spend a little bit more time. Next we have the couch stretch pioneered by Kelly Starrett from Mobility WOD. Great one for opening up the hips and strengthening the glutes. So we're going to use some PNF or contract relax style stretching to reinforce a nice stable position. So putting the knee in the crux of the a couch or a wall. We're going to get into this sort of runner's stance to start with and just hang out here for 20 or 30 seconds. So a couple of important cues throughout the couch stretch. You want to keep an awareness of the core, so keeping it lightly switched on, and the rear glute, so in this case it's your right glute at the moment, is switched on as well, because that's going to protect the lower back, keep the spine safe and stable. So keeping those hands down for now and keeping the core tight. On the next inhale, I want you to take a big deep breath, and as you hold it, I want you to drive your knee down through the couch or through the floor and push your foot against the back of the couch or the wall at the same time. So a big deep breath in, and as you hold your push in, we're going to hold this for another 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. So what we might find is that we've been able to move a little bit deeper into that range of motion. So we're just going to hold out here for a few seconds and release. So now we're going to move up into position 2, only if it's comfortable for you. If you felt like that's already been enough of a challenge in position 1, then you can stay there for now. So we're going to repeat that same process here, just hanging out for 20 seconds or so, just working into this new range of motion. So you can see I've got my hands kind of on my belly. So I'm just reminding myself to keep my core switched on. If we let go of that tension through the core, it's easy to dump a lot of weight through the low back. So we're not actually getting the benefits of the stretch. So just trying to keep that activated and keep that rear glute switched on as well throughout, and just breathe in nice and freely as well. So on the next inhale, we're going to take a nice big deep one into the belly, into the ribs. And as we hold, we're going to do that same contraction, driving the right leg down into the couch and against the back of the couch. A nice big deep breath in, and as you hold, you're driving, keeping that rear glute activated, keeping the core switched on, keeping that tension on for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and gently see if you've got a little bit more space available now to move into. No worries if not, but if you do, you can kind of take up the slack and move a little bit deeper. So if you feel comfortable to do so, we're now going to progress on to position 3. So you're going to raise your right arm up overhead. It's really important to keep that tension through the core now, because we're kind of changing the leverage a little bit, and it has the potential to put even more pressure on the low back. So really keeping that glute turned on, the rear glute, and keeping the core switched on. We're reaching up with the right arm and sort of leaning a little bit towards the left. So we're hanging out here again for 20 seconds or so, just getting used to this position. A slight lift up and back if it's comfortable to you. So there's a slight arch through the mid-back. So we're really feeling the hip flexor, the psoas open up. One last contraction on this side when you're ready. Nice big deep breath in, and again, drive that right knee down and that right foot back. So you're squeezing through the core, through that glute, driving down and forward. 4, 3, 2, 1, and release. So see again if you can go a little bit deeper into the stretch. I'm just going to hold that for another 5 to 10 seconds. So we're extending our flexibility or mobility, and through the muscle contractions, we're signaling to our body that this new position is safe. So it's easier for us to come back to at a later date. So let's switch sides now. Put the left knee back into the couch, and we're going to open up on that left side now. So we're just hanging out for 20 seconds or so, just settling into that position. Again, keeping the core on, keeping that rear glute switched on, keeping the head nice and lifted, and just breathing freely for another 10 seconds or so before we go into our first contraction. So again, we're keeping our hands down for this one. A nice big deep breath in, fill in the belly, fill in the lungs, and as we hold, we're going to drive the left knee down and the left foot back, keeping the glute switched on, keeping the core switched on, lots of tension through the body. For 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And as you release that tension, as you release that breath, we maybe move a little bit deeper into the stretch. No worries if not. If you've got that slack, you can pick it up. So we're just holding here for a few more seconds, then we're going to progress up to position 2 if you're comfortable to do so, if that's safe on your back and on your hips. So again, hands are coming up to the core, and we're just going to hang out here for 20 seconds or so. So you can use a stick or kind of a prop to help prop you up if you find yourself wanting to be sort of in between position 1 and position 2. That's no problem. Just use whatever is around you to support your body. So we're going to go for a contraction in this position as well. It's a nice big deep breath into the belly, fill the rib cage, and we're squeezing, driving that left knee down into the couch, left foot backwards, keeping the core switched on, keeping the glutes switched on. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and release. And we maybe move a little bit deeper into that stretch. Again, no worries if we're not getting deeper after each contraction. We can always spend a little bit more time in our own time if we need to. So we're going to go ahead now into position 3 if it's comfortable. So that left hand is going to come up overhead, keeping that tension through the core. We'll maybe lean slightly towards the right and back, so a little bit of extension through the thoracic. So we're really opening up through that hip flexor through the left side of the body. So we're just getting comfortable here, and then on the next inhale, make it a big one, fill your belly, fill your ribs, and we're going to hold that and squeeze, drive that left knee down into the couch, left foot against the back of the couch. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. And again, if we can move a little bit deeper into that position, then that's amazing. Just do your best, even if it's only millimeters or half a millimeter, and that's great. So just hang out here for a few more seconds, and then we'll call it a day for the couch stretch. It's a great one to incorporate throughout your day if you do sit a lot, and release when you're ready. Finishing up with a quick compression exercise, great for building strength in the lower abs, the deep core, and the hip flexors too. So we're getting down on the floor on our bums for this one, and with level 1, we're going to be just compressing our knees up towards our chest. So lifting the toes off the floor and squeezing our knees in, compressing as much as we can, holding for a few more seconds, and then release. So we're just going to have a little rest here, shake the legs out. If you want to progress to level 2, we're going to put the hands a little bit further forward, and we're going to try and have the legs straight. So we're contracting through the core, contracting through the quads, and we're lifting off the floor, really squeezing everything together. So trying to activate those deep core muscles and the lower abs. And then we will release, give the legs a shake. If that was okay, then we can maybe progress to level 3, in which our hands are a little bit further backwards, so a bit closer to our bum. And then we're doing the same. We're trying not to lean back too much, trying to keep that compression. Point the toes, maybe give them a little wiggle. Squeezing everything together, squeezing the thighs towards the chest, and release. Let's finish things up with a quick check-in, a recheck of our baseline. So how does our pelvis feel? Does one side feel a little bit freer compared to before? How is your pelvis moving front to back, side to side? How's your posture aligned? What's your baseline? You got a little bit more freedom through the lower back maybe, a little bit less compression there. We can recheck our flexion and also our extension at the hip just to see how that feels compared to 10 minutes ago. And of course we can recheck the squat. How does that feel compared to 10 minutes ago? Have you maybe got a little bit more depth? Is it a bit easier to control yourself? You've got a bit more freedom of movement at the bottom of your squat? And the same thing goes for our hip hinge. Do we have a little bit more freedom of motion? Is it easier to contract our glutes maybe at the top of that motion? Just checking in, seeing what has happened, what has changed, and noting it down. Great job. I'll see you in the next video.